Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with survivor, Hollywood industry worker, and author Shay Morad. He is the author of SHEMA, Always Keep the Faith, that is based on a true story. It invites the reader into the mind of a teenager and how he was lured into the glamorous world of gambling. Readers follow that descent into a gambling addiction, unaware of the monster shadowing every bet. The flashing lights, loud music, entertainment, and winning chips served to distract him, but he overcame it. He's written a book. He's got a lot going on in his life. Enjoy this story.
Hey, it's great to meet you. Where are you located?
So I live in LA, in the Moore Park area. It's close to LA, basically, like north of LA.
Okay, right on. Well, I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, so it's great to meet you. And I'm looking forward to delving into your life. You have a very interesting story. And to begin that story, I want to ask you, we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary of the pandemic. How did you make it through that COVID time period, and how did it change you?
So the COVID in my industry, so I work in the Hollywood film industry, and in my industry, obviously, it was shut down, and everything was shut down. So it was a very challenging time, but I basically I found a way to write my story on that time. I used that time to basically write my story and in hope of helping others. So basically I used that time to, the challenging time to write my book, and then hopefully it can help others by that.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do in Hollywood. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the kids curiously looks up and asks you, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer that child?
So basically we work on the location side of Hollywood. So whenever they want to film like in a restaurant or in an office space or in a warehouse, they give us a call and we put 2 or 3 options in front of them. And then if they choose one of them, that's how we make the money. So we basically bridge the real estate side with the Hollywood production side, and we're able to bring lots of TV shows, productions, commercials, and feature films in that. So I work basically on the location side of filming.
So what did you want to be in the 3rd grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
So it's funny. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of my grandfather and my uncle, and eventually I was able to do that, and my mom also. They all owned restaurants. So as a young teen, I was able to work in my parents' restaurant, and then ultimately, at 23 years old, I was able to open my own restaurant. So that was my passion, basically.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about how you got into being a writer and got into Hollywood. Take me back to where you were born and raised, and what were some of these seeds that grew into who you are today?
Sure. So I'd like to take a few minutes to just tell the audience a little bit about my book, if you don't mind. So.
Oh yeah, no, and that's what I was leading up to. So yeah, however you want to orchestrate the timeline, that's fine.
Sure. So my book is called SHEMA, Always Keep the Faith. And SHEMA in Judaism, it's the most important prayer. It's centered on one God, and that's a prayer that we pray in the morning and in the evening. And that prayer helped me in my darkest times, in my hardest, basically my most challenging times, to basically overcome my struggles. So I grew up in Israel, and to a loving parents, amazing parents. My mom was born in Egypt, and my dad was born in Baghdad, Iraq. And and I was just a loving family, amazing parents. I'm the youngest of 4. And then I was always very, very, very competitive in nature. If I played with you, let's say like one-on-one in the basketball, let's say, and then you beat me, I would always want to play one more game until, I overcame that. So I had that competitive nature with me all the time. And then when we came here, I came to the States at 12 years old. And then my parents opened a restaurant a couple years after that. And I was helping them. And that's where I found gambling as a teenager at 17 from customers that were there. And then that led me to a road basically lured me into gambling, and it was a very like dark times in my life. And then I opened my restaurant at 23, and then ran it for 15 years. Ended up overcoming addiction while having the restaurant. Ended up losing it over a lease, which was very hard for me to basically overcome. It was very like tough mentally because I love people, I love to interact with people, I love also my job, and then it was taken away from me, and I lost my passion, I lost my smile, and ultimately what gave me my opportunity was a small company, Joe. I don't know if you heard of it, Uber. It's a little company that came along, Uber. So basically,
yeah,
Uber, it's a small little company. So basically, so Uber came along, and right when it was launched in my area, I gave it a shot, and that's when I met the person that I drove a person basically that works in Hollywood, and he ended up hiring me and giving me an opportunity of a lifetime basically, and that's how I got into Hollywood.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. Tell me, who's been kind of a hero for you in your life?
So I've had a few. So I've had my rabbi and my chef. They were both like there for me in hard times, and they were always giving me like wisdom and advice throughout it. And they ultimately gave me, basically they always like told me to keep pushing forward and always look at the bright side of things. And they were very instrumental in my life in giving me like guidance in hard times when I didn't have that.
So I know you're in Hollywood and you work around a lot of big, people and a lot of esteemed people. But if you could meet one person on the planet right now that you really admire or find inspirational and spend some time with them, who would it be?
So a living person? That's a good question. Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. I would say a living person, one person. That's a great question. I would have to say, you caught me there. And I see a living person, right?
It could be anybody. It could be a ghost. It could be someone from the past. It could be someone that's not here. It could be anybody that's ever been alive.
So I would have to say Albert Einstein, because he was very instrumental. He basically, just to pick his brain, obviously. I mean, such a, intelligent person. Yeah, I would have to say Albert Einstein. That would be kind of interesting for me.
So let me ask you this. You're obviously highly motivated and you work really hard. What is the thing that gets you out of bed each day? What's the thing that motivates you to do the work that you do?
So what drives me is, first and foremost, is my son. That gives me the push. What drives me is also the person that gave me that opportunity. I want to do good by him. I kind of like, I felt when he gave me that opportunity, I was very, very down in my life. I was just a driver, and then he ultimately gave me the opportunity without even asking for credentials or without even without even testing me if I do the job right, or you just like recognize me for who I am and give me the chance. And I just feel like, I just want to do good by him. So those two things, and obviously it's like a competitive industry, and I'm super competitive, and I always like to, outwork my competition and make sure I produce. So it's kind of like, so my son first and foremost, and the person that I work with, that gives me the drive.
So of all of these adventures that you've had in Hollywood and the work that you've done, what's been one of the best success stories? One of them that really stands out and puts a smile on your face?
So as far as like my job?
Yeah, as far as your professional life, yeah.
So I would have to say it's my first property that I got. So the way it happened is I was just a driver. I drove somebody to downtown. It's about like an hour away from where I live, and we just hit it off. And that's the person I work with. And then ultimately, as we get to downtown, he says, "Hey, you doing this for full time?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "How would you like to drive me? I do multiple stops a day, and if you drive me, I bet you can make more money." And I said, "I'd love to." So just 2 weeks, I started driving him, and then I would listen to his pitch, to new customers, to new clients. And 2 weeks in, he gets off the phone, and he says he was like upset that, like a property that he was been searching for, he couldn't get it. And then I said, well, how come he can't get it? And he said, it's not that easy. They don't return my calls, and I've been chasing it for a while, and it's the toughest close I've ever had. And I said, how about if I get it for you? I didn't have any background, any knowledge about anything that he was doing. Just like listening to his speech with customers. But I felt like, like this would be my chance. If I can get that, I can like change my life and my son's life. So he said, go for it. If you get this property, he said two things. He said it's a gold mine, and each time we film in there, I will give you a referral fee. That's what he said. And that stuck with me, and I turned around. Yeah, and I turned around. I pushed, I stopped the car. I turned around, and I looked him in his eyes, and I said, you promise? He said, I promise. And I said, deal. So for the next few weeks, I'm like, researching about that company, and I found out it's a local company in Irvine. Irvine is about 2 hours south of where I live. So, I was researching, from like, who's the leadership or the names, the VP. I knew all the people, from top to down, from the website that they had. And one day he told me I'm going to work from home. So I basically, the next day, that was my chance. I got dressed up, like $1 million, my best clothes on, and I drove there without unannounced, not an appointment or anything. And as I walked in, I felt good. I felt like, like this is my opportunity, because two things stuck with me. It's like gold mine and referral fee, and my son, and I see everything, and this is my chance to dig myself out of the hole that I created myself for many years with gambling and debt. And so I walked in there super confident, and I talked to the receptionist, and I told her, I'd like to talk to the VP. And she said, no, do you have an appointment? I said, no. Tell him the Shai is right here in the lobby to talk to him. So she told me, why don't you pick up the phone in the lobby and just dial his extension. And I dialed the extension, and I told him, and I just gave him like whatever pitch that the guy that I was working for, whatever he was doing to new customers. And I just told him, we're a film broker. We can make you a lot of money in the property that you just recently purchased like a few months ago, and we can bring you all these productions. And I told him, we can just inject like revenue to your property instantly. And he told me like, slow down. I'm not the person that he was like the VP of the whole company, but he wasn't in charge of that specific property. So he referred me to her, and I ended up, I thanked him. He was super nice. He told me my pleasure. And then I went home, I emailed her. No, sorry. So he gave me a phone number. So I called her about 20 times, nothing. I didn't get any answer. It was always a voicemail. She didn't pick it up. So then the next, I decided to call her early in the morning. So I called her early in the morning. I caught her like at home, and I just laid it out there, all my heart and passion. I told her, exactly what we do, and we could like, about our job and how we can like give them some revenue in the meantime until they develop it. Because it takes like 2 or 3 years, until they get like the permits and stuff like that, until they redevelop the property. So then she told me, Shai, okay, why don't you like, email me about what you're trying to do, and we'll go from there. And then I said, fine. Just remember, my name is Shai, because my email, I didn't have an email like a corporate email, Joe. I just had my regular email. Till this day, the same thing. So it's just a regular email, So anyway, I emailed her when I got home, and I sent it to her, and she didn't respond like a week. And then I called her, caught her again on the phone, and I just told her if she can give me just one meeting, because I wanted, if she could give me the meeting, I could bring, the owner of the company, and he can like close the deal. And I just, told her, I know, you're super busy, and I value your time. Just give me one meeting. I promise you, it'll be quick. I just want to answer questions in real time. And she agreed to that. She gave us the meeting. And then I told the person I'm working with that, we got the meeting. I was super happy. We drove there, and I was so out of my element, because here I am like in a conference room. I've never been in a conference room, and I'm sitting there with him on my side, and then 3 ladies in front of us. and they're like asking him question after question, like, you know, financial question, and he was so polished, and he answered each one, you know, like thoroughly. And they basically, at the end of the meeting, they gave us a chance, and they signed us on. And just like he said, it was a gold mine. We filmed there like almost weekly with all the top shows in Hollywood and TV shows and feature films and commercials. And he was a man of his word. He gave me a referral fee each time. So that will be my best opportunity to answer your question. That was basically, that opened the door for me. So that was
wow, that's a great story.
That was the most rewarding. Yeah, that was the most rewarding. And until this day, when we worked together, you know, the guy pulled me out of a financial ruins that I did in my own hands. You know, I basically ruined my own life with my own hands. And he gave me an opportunity of a lifetime without asking, again, like for credentials or like a degree. I never graduated high school, Joe. I never, you know, I'm like the ultimate underdog story, you know, basically story, as they say, you know. And here I am, like rubbing elbows with like people like much more educated than me, much more, you know, like qualified than me, but nobody will outwork me. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'd say so. So, you know, the one thing about your book is that I don't know that people understand that gambling is one of the strongest addictions that a human being can get involved with. And I'm curious, what has been some of the responses that you've gotten from your book?
So it's a lot of positive, you know, because to me, addiction, it's all under the same umbrella. Like if you're an alcoholic, if you're a drug addict, or if you're a gambler, you go through the same, you know, demons inside, the same things, you know, issues, and it basically overtakes your life the same way. Basically, like hijacks your mind and your soul. So I've gotten a lot of positive reviews, and it's also when I was able to drive, you know, with Uber. It's always like when I'm talking to people, sometimes I talk to youngsters that, you know, and I tell them my story, and they tell me, oh, you know what, I have a drinking problem, or, you know what I mean, if I had a friend that I lost a friend for drugs or for fentanyl or stuff like that. They all listen, you know, carefully, because you tell them their story basically, and then you told them like how you overcame it. So it's been a positive experience, to say it. It wasn't easy to write it because, you know, I had to dig deep, you know, into that dark hole that I never wanted to go back to. You know, I just never wanted to like relive those moments. But in order to give the reader the best, you know, basically the best way into a gambling's mind, so I had to basically tap into the young version of me in order to do that in the book. But it's been positive. Yeah, it's been positive. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you were to have a dream tonight and you ran into, say, the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would tell them choose wisely, because decisions that you make have a ripple effect throughout your life. It's like throwing a pebble in the ocean, in like a pond. So, you know, choose wisely, because if you make a decision now, it could take you down a road, a dark road, that you're going to pay for it for years to come. So choose wisely the decisions that you make, because it's very, very impactful in your life. You might not think about it when you're young. You know, you think, you know, you're Superman at that time, and it's not going to happen to you, or, you know what I mean, or you're above that. But, like, decisions that you make have a lot of impact in your life for years to come. So choose wisely the decisions that you make, and the friends that you befriend, you know, and you know, basically the road that you take shapes who you are. So just make the right decisions.
So of all of the things that you've done, overcome, become, evolved into up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
The most proud of I am is my son. I'll be honest with you. How I was able to basically, when I got divorced because of the gambling, and when I lost my restaurant, basically business that I ran for 15 years, my son was the strength, gave me the strength to keep on pushing on. So I you know, to the credit of the mom of my son, my ex-wife, she was an amazing mom, and just an amazing mom, really. Always, you know, reading to him, always like playing games with him, always like putting him first in her life. She's super, super an amazing mom. And when we got divorced, she basically like allowed me to have my son on the weekends. So I had my son from like Friday till Sunday evening, every single weekend, Joe. So I'm most proud of being there for my son, just as my dad was there for me, because I wanted to fix all the wrongs that I did, and just, my son was my centerpiece. He was like my rock. He was keeping me from going back to my old ways. So I wanted to be there for him, and it was very important to me to do that. So the most important thing and accomplishment is for me is my son. So he gave, just to be there for him, just to see. He played soccer since he was 5 years old, all the way to college, and I've never missed any of his games. And it was very important for me to be in the stands and there, when he was making score a goal or doing a nice play, and he knows, what dad is cheering him on in the stands. So that was very, very that's the most proud I am, is with my son, that I was able to be there for my son and be a good dad for my son, and overcome all that, and just being there for my son and being in his life. That's was very important for me, and that's my most proud accomplishment.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, colleagues, everyone that's getting your book, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
So my perception of me, when I was younger, is different than now.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was confused. I was basically a person that was walking not in the right path. I did a lot of wrong things. I got into some serious stuff, with gambling, and that took me on a terrible path. But I was able to learn from that, and I remember going back to the name of the book, which is Shema, with the prayer. When I hit rock bottom, and my life was basically my life was in jeopardy, because I owed the whole world money. Some good people and some not good people. I owed people with high interest. I owed loan sharks, gangsters, mobsters, and it was all by my own doings. In that equation, I was the bad guy. They were not the bad guy. They basically, they gave me the money, and they, this was the agreement that we had. But I basically I didn't basically come up on that end. I was wrong, because I was gambling with the money. But so at that, when I basically when I read rock bottom, and I will never forget. There was chaos all around me. There was fires all around me. Chaos and fire that I created with my own hands. And I just laid there in bed, calm. And I just started tears coming down. And I asked God, and I started praying. And I asked God to please forgive me for what I've done, for all the pain that I, gave to my family, my loved ones, everybody around me. It's just negative pain that I was causing. And I asked him to give me a chance to fix the wrong that I've done. Show me the way and I'll follow. Show me the path to success, and show me the path to overcome that, and I'll just do good in life. And I'll just try to help people. I'll try to be a better person. And that's what helped me. The prayer, it was just helpful in me, and just give me the strength from inside. And so that's basically now, I live my life trying to help others, obviously by writing the book, and by sharing my story. And I just try to be a better person each day than yesterday, and just trying to help people. I love people, and just giving back. And so back then it was different than now, but I just try to be a better person and learn from my mistakes, and then just help people, hopefully not make the same mistakes that I've made. Are you there?
So yeah, I'm here. No, I'm sorry. I was just thinking about my next question here. So, we kind of scratched the surface here with your story. If anyone wants to get your book, learn more about you, reach out, how do they do that?
So they can go to my website, which is shaymorad.com, so SHAYMORAD.com. It will tell you all about my book, and there's a link for Amazon there, and you could just purchase the book right there. And I would love it if people follow me on Instagram also. There's a link there, and then just support me. You know, I'm just trying to just spread, be inspirational and motivate people, and just spread positive energy to people.
Shay, I love it, man. What a great story. Thank you for opening up. Thank you for taking some time out today, and best of luck with the book and everything as we continue.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.